So to use the MixPad or Audacity audio editing software, you need to convert some of the files from M4As or AIFF into either an MP3 or a WAV. Audition does accept other file types, but MixPad and Audacity will only accept those two, the MP3s and WAVs. So there are two ways of doing that. You can either use a free piece of software that you can download from online, which is called VLC, or you can actually use a website, which I'll show you also how to use. So here are the two options. So I've got an M4A file right here that I want to convert in either into an MP3 or a WAV file. So let's first do this conversion from one file type to the next. So here is VLC. We'll start that up. This is the basic browser window that we're going to work with. So you can do all other kinds of different things with VLC. You can play back videos for, you can actually create videos and audio, but we're just going to do a file conversion. All right, so to do the file conversion, we're going to go to File, Convert Stream, and you'll get this new pop-up window. And you can either open the media or we can just drag and drop it straight in there, such as such. Then you just decide what kind of file format you want to convert this file from an M4A into, in this case, we're going to convert it to an MP3. I'm going to save it as a file. I'm not going to stream it, so I'm going to select Save as File. Choose a destination. I can name the file. For example, in this case, I'll just name it the same again, tvnews.mp3. I'll save it onto my desktop, save, and save again. And here you can see it has done the conversion for us. So this is an MP3 file that we've now converted from an M4A. Right. So that's one way of converting a file type, an audio file type, from one that's not accepted through Audacity or MixPad into something that is. Now let's get out of VLC Media Player. Let's go to the website. Our website is right here. It's called onlineconverter.com. And you can see you can convert all kinds of various multimedia files. That includes videos and audios, images, and so on. You can also convert into PDFs. And so right here is Audio Converter. So we're going to convert a file from something into an MP3. Just click on Go. Let's upload our file. Desktop, this is the M4A again. Upload it. Convert it. Takes just a few seconds because it's a small file. Conversion is completed. Now we can download it. So we downloaded, close that, downloaded the file. Let's close off our browser. And we can see down here in our download folder, that is the file. This is actually TV News MP3. So we have those two versions. One of them using VLC as a file converter, and the other one using the website as a file converter. That's again changing from, in this case, an M4A into an MP3, so that we can use it for the MixPad or Audacity audio editing software. So this is a continuation of how to use MixPad as an audio editing software. Just to let you know, you can download MixPad from a website from a company named NCH, and this is the website right here, nch.com.au. And as you can see, there's all different types of editing software here. You've got audio and video, dictation, and other things. Primarily what you're going to need is to get this multi-track software right here. You don't worry about sound editing, just get the multi-track software. You download it, install it. I think you get a 14-day free demo version or trial version. Then I think it asks you afterwards if you want to buy the software. I can't remember, but you might be able to just say I'll buy it later on or something like that. Anyway, so let's go ahead and open up the software called MixPad, which is right here. Okay, so when you first open up MixPad, you're going to get this interface right here. So I asked you right from the beginning if you want to start a new project. Yeah, you can start a new project, you can open old projects, open sample projects, get tutorials, whatever else. So we'll just say new project for now. If we want to, we can save this project in a location file, save project as, because we want to basically put it in a certain location so that we make sure that we're always saving and updating. So let's go to my desktop. I'm going to put it into MixPad edit. And if I want to, I can just call it, I don't know, podcast, or we can call it Gen Z podcast. Gen Z podcast. And it creates an MPDP file. So that's basically saying that's a MixPad file. And that file can only be opened up by MixPad if you want to reopen it again later on. Okay, save your file. Now here are the various elements of the software. So you can see right here in the middle, these are the various tracks that we're going to work with. So it starts off, the software really starts at the very beginning with many tracks already. We probably won't need to be using all of these. You might just need to use maybe 3 or 4 or 5 of them, roughly something like that. On the far left, we have the various editing or control sections that go for each track. For example, I'll talk about these various buttons here, what they do later on. Down here, we have our timeline. So this tells you basically the time of our mix. So this is 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, etc., etc. Below that, you'll see later on we have our levels. These will be bouncing up and down as we play back certain audio clips. You'll see these yellow lines bouncing up, and of course, if they get into too high up, it's going to be in the reds. I think it's actually green and then yellow and then red. So if you want to make sure you're never bouncing up into the red, you want to make sure that at your peaks, your main volume of your main audio clip or main audio file is going to be bouncing between -6 to -12. You don't want to get up too high and you don't want to be down too low so it's hard to hear. Down here, there's a little window right here. This is another window that helps us control where we are in the timeline. You'll see this will come and be a little bit more important later on. Right now, we can't see anything different because we don't have any audio files here. And of course, up here, we have various tools to work with. As you'll see, I'll kind of show you some of these various tools later on as we are working on the mix or working on the podcast. Okay, so to start off with, we can go ahead and start loading some audio files or audio clips into these various tracks. We can just do that right from the beginning. So let's just do that. So there's various ways we can do that. We can either hit open or we can hit load. So let's just go ahead and go with load. I'll load a file. So as I mentioned before, we are going to be working on a podcast. And let me just show you the various files that I have for the podcast. Sorry, let me just cancel out this real quick. Let's just look at the various files. So here in MixPad, I've got various files that I want to now work with to do my sample podcast. I've got some clips of ambient and natural sound. I'll show you which ones I'm going to work with here. I've got some narration. These are actually what's called an intro and outro file. So that might be the intro to the beginning of my podcast and then the outro to end the podcast. I have a piece of music. I have a music clip that I downloaded from a free music website. So it's basically a copyright open for us that we can use that. It's a Creative Commons file, Creative Commons music. And then I have the interview that I've done with somebody. This is a person named Amerly. And basically my sample or my fun podcast that I've created, it's a new episode of a make-believe podcast that I'm calling Can't Get Out of Bed. And it's all about basically interviewing someone about how they get out of bed and their morning routine before they start their day. And in this case, I interviewed someone named Amelie. So I've got various different files. I also have this other file, Little and Noisy, and I'll explain why I have that here in just a moment. Okay, back into the software, load. So we need to basically build our story in these various tracks. And I'm actually going to put in the top track, I want to put in my intro and my outro. Right, so let's go back to the MixPad edit. On the narration part, I've got my intro file, so intro file. I'm going to throw that in there. Okay. So here is this first intro file. And we can have a listen to it just to let you know of how I want to start my podcast. So I've created this little intro file that would go with every episode. And so here it is. We can hit the space bar down here on your keyboard, and you'll see this will play this file, okay, or this track. Waking up isn't easy, but come on, you sleepyheads. Go ahead, grab a fresh cup of coffee, and join me, your host Dean Cox, for another weekly episode of the Can't Get Out of Bed podcast. And hear how people around the world open their eyes, have a good yawn, stretch their legs, and prepare for a new day. All right, so that was kind of just a fun intro that I made for my podcast. I can actually add the outro as well. So let me just go here to this other track right here, and I'll just import my outro. As you can see, now that I click on these various tracks or different track, you get this light green line. Basically, it tells you that that is the active track. So that's active now. This is active next. So let me just go ahead and load my outro file. All right, there's my outro. Now, I'm going to hit my play button here because what I want you to do is I want you to hear what happens when we have various tracks that are on top of each other. So first, I'm just going to go ahead and hit it. Coffee, and join me, your host Dean Cox. That's it for this week's episode of. So as you can see, now we hear both the files or both the clips playing at the same time. So that gives me the opportunity maybe just to show you some of these functions over here and what these are. So now I just want to listen to my outro final, which is in this second track right here. I want to mute this one. I want to turn this one off. So I just hit the M button and basically graze out this track or graze out any other tracks that you click M for, mute, and now I can only hear this track right here. So I'll go ahead and hit play again. That's it for this week's episode of Can't Get Out of Bed. Join me again next week for another wake-up interview, and enjoy your day. All right, so that'd be like the fun way of ending my make-believe podcast. Okay, we can unmute it. Now, let's say you have several tracks, but you only want to hear one. Rather than muting all the other tracks, you can just hit S for solo. That means basically it turns off all of the other tracks. You can say this one is only the one that's active now. We can also directly record into a track if we wanted to. For example, I've now made track 3 active, so 1, 2, 3. This is the third track that's active. I can click this button right here. That basically means that I'm now going to say yes, allow my microphone to work. I'm just going to record into this track. And you can see there's already some levels that are bouncing here. Basically, this is my built-in microphone for my computer that I'm editing on right now. And it can tell that I have some kind of incoming audio coming. That's what these are bouncing. So I'm just going to solo this, right? I want to turn these off. And then I'm going to go down here and hit the record button. Okay, and as I'm starting to talk now, you can see that it's laying down some tracks. Obviously, you can see my waveform here is almost non-existent, and that's really what you can tell by my levels are not bouncing very high, so my incoming audio levels are quite low. To stop that incoming audio recording, I just hit stop. So maybe this isn't the best way to record directly into a track, unless maybe you've got some kind of plug-in microphone or something like that to work with. All right, let's go ahead and hit delete on that. We don't want that track anymore. And let's go ahead and turn off the solo, and we don't want to record anymore in that track. But again, there is an option. I think the best thing that you should do is rather than record directly into the software, if you don't have a very good external microphone to work with, it's probably best to just record on a mobile device or maybe some kind of other recorder and then just import that audio file. Okay, let's go ahead and import a few more. So I've got my outro, I've got my intro. I can actually move these tracks or move these clips between various tracks. Let's say in track 2, I actually want to load in my interview that I have with Amelie. So let's find that interview, MixPad, edit, here an interview. This might take a while because it's a longer interview. It's about, I think, like 9 minutes long. Okay, so there we have the interview now. Let's go into track this other track down here. I have some music that I want to work with as well. Of course, you're going to need some music for your Gen Z podcast assignment. So let's load another clip. Let's find my music. Piece of music that I think I want to work with. All right, that's also quite a long clip, several minutes long. I do also have some ambient and natural sound clips. I did record a few on my own, and then I also went to a website that allows me to download some sound effects for free. Let's just load some of those. Now I'm going to do something different here. I'm going to go to my natural ambient sounds. I've got lots of clips here. I'm going to use some of them, but I'm not going to use all of them. Now I have created basically a script that I've done before. I've actually opened the software. Let me just show that to you, because doing a script will probably help you when it comes to creating your story. All right? So first of all, we have an interview here. And in my interview, this is the digital audio file of the interview that I've done. I've actually transcribed this interview, and you'll see what I mean by that. So I've taken the interview that's now purely audio, and I've transcribed. That means basically I'm typing it out, so I'm having a textual version of what the audio file is. Okay, and that's this right here, transcribing the interview. And what's important with the transcription is, of course, you will see the quotes of the various speakers. So speaker 2 is me, the interviewer. Speaker 1 is the person who I'm interviewing. That's Amelie. And then it gives me some time codes. These time codes are actually really crucial and important for me when I start editing my story later on. Now I can do this by hand. I can play back my audio file and type this all out, which does take a long time. In this case, I actually didn't do that. I can't say I cheated, but I did go to a website, which is called Scribe. That's this one right here. And for free, you can't do that much, but you can for free for maybe, I think, up to 30 minutes. It will transcribe an audio file for you. So I uploaded that audio file. Basically, here's the upload, and then I told it to transcribe it. And when it transcribed it, it gave me this right here. So it did it all for me really, really quickly, which is great. And I just needed to download it. That gave me, I can tell it how to download it. I told it I wanted a doc file or a Microsoft Word file, which it did. And then after that, what I did is I just cleaned it up a little bit, made sure that the spellings were correct, make sure that everything, I just listened to it and just double checked everything. So normally it would take me quite a while, even if it's just an 8-minute or 9-minute interview. That would still probably take me about 30 to 35 minutes to do a transcription by hand. By using that website, it just took me, I think, maybe just a few minutes, 2 or 3 minutes to have everything done, which was great. Okay, so I've got this transcription, which is important for me, but I want to make sure that I have a script, and this is another file that I created. So I went through my transcription right here, my interview, and I kind of tried to decide what are the most important elements that I want to use in my podcast. And so for this podcast, I've now created a script for myself that basically tells me how I'm going to edit it or put it together, assemble it in the audio editing software. So as you can see here, I've got fade in intro. That's the intro file. And if we look back here in my software, that's this file right here. So, so I'm going to start my story with this clip. Then I'm going to fade it out, and then I'm going to fade in something that Amelie says, and then I'm going to begin some natural sound fading in of an ringing alarm from a mobile phone. So I'm basically just designing this how I want all of my various pieces of sound to work together, including how and where I want to fade in the music and fade out the music, the natural sound I'm going to use, when I'm going to fade in and out Amelie's voice, and even if let's say I'm going to do some narrating or part of my voice is going to be in here, I would probably add that to the script as well. And then of course at the very end I've got the outro, right? So I'm fading out my music, then I'm going to fade in the outro, and then fade out the outro. All right, so I'm looking at this because I wanted to see what pieces of natural sound I'm going to use. So remember, I want to import some natural sound clips. I don't need all of them because I have quite a few of them. So I know I need the ringing alarm mobile phone. I'm going to need picking clothes, putting on pants, washing hands, eating an orange. Okay, that's it. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of sound. All right, let's see if I can remember those. So I'm going to come down to this track down here. It just doesn't really matter where I'm going to lay them in. I'm just going to bring those all in into the same one. Load clip. So let's get into the ambient sound now. And I'm going to have several pieces. So I know I said I wanted eating an orange. I wanted ringing alarm. Washing, I think it was washing hands. Putting on pants. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. What else do we have? What was that again? So ringing alarm, picking clothes, putting on pants. Wait, picking clothes, putting on pants, eating orange. Okay, so I think that's what we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Open it up. Okay, so when we've selected multiple clips to load at the same time, we can either say load normally or load as mixtape. So before, when we just picked one file at a time, it basically just immediately just dropped that into its own track. All right, so now we'll just hit load normally, and it's going to take each one of those clips, and it's going to put it into its own track. Of course, we can decide later on that we're going to take all these tracks and we're going to put them basically into, or these various clips, and put them into the same kind of track. All right, let's scroll down a little bit here. Let's find our other clips. Let's bring them up. All right, because it's kind of good. I'll show you how we're going to work in trying to keep similar elements of our sound in pretty much the same tracks. Okay, so let's go back to the very, very top here now. There's a few things that we can do now to make our life a little bit easier. And that is, again, working with some things over here. So as I mentioned, we've got several different tools to work with on the top. One of the things that I want to change or alter right now is I want to actually go to this clip, or this little tab right here called track. And now I can do some things to the tracks right here. I can add a track if I want. As you can see, that means it'll add one on the bottom. I can insert a track. So if I've got this track selected and I can say insert a track, it'll put one either above or below it. I can delete a track if I want to. Let's say I don't want this track right here anymore. I'll select this one. I can say delete track. Do I want to delete it? Yes, and it'll take that track away from me. I can rename track, which is great, because what I want to actually do is, I know my intro and outro are going to be up here, so I'm just going to rename this track. I'm just going to rename it intro, outro. Okay, let's go to this one. That is going to be my interview. I can rename that interview. If I want to, I can rename this one music, and I can rename this one, let's say, Nat Sound. Okay, so those are the various clips that we have that we're going to work with now. I can, of course, do other things. I can export a track, I can import a track. So let's say I've created a track in a previous version or in another project using the software, and I want to import it in here. I can do that if I'd like to. Okay, so that's about tracks. Another kind of fun thing about tracks is you can see a lot of these kind of have similar colors. If we refer back to my script here, you'll see that I've kind of color-coded some things for myself. For example, I've got the fade-in intro and the fade-in outro as yellow. So if I wanted to, I could actually change the color of this track. And what it does, it not just changes the color of the track, it actually changes the color of the waveform. So here I know it's yellow, and it's the waveform as well. Okay, my interview is in green. So if I wanted to, let's click on this. Let's go to color. Let me change the color of the interview to green. Well, that's very similar to my intro or my outro, but it's okay. My music, what did I say? I mean, music I think is purple. So let's change my music to purple. And then what else do I have? And then I have that Nat Sound, which is in red, okay? So Nat Sound is this track. So we can change the Nat Sound to red. Okay, so yeah, it might make my life a little bit easier now to do the editing when I'm kind of jumping back and forth, looking at my script and looking at my editing. Okay, so now that we've worked with some of the tracks, and we've worked with bringing in our files. I've showed you how to do the mute and the solo and the recording. Let's actually get into the more nitty-gritty part of the editing. Really, one of the most important things that you need to start off right from the beginning is, especially when it comes to your interview file, or if you're doing narration, you want to make sure that those audio tracks are very clean. That means there's no background noise, there's no humming, there's no buzzing, there's no hissing in the background. Now, it may happen that, let's say you've recorded an interview or a narration and your audio is too quiet, and then you bring it into the software and you boost the audio, you raise the audio level. And of course that means you're also probably going to raise up the background, the room tone, or if there's audio hiss or something like that. And that means you need to get rid of that. So there's a few things that you might have to do. And I'm not saying you have to do them, but you might have to do if you notice that your audio level on primarily your interview or your narration is not very good. So there's some small changes or fixes that we might have to make. So I'm actually going to import a file. I'm going to just do it down here into this very, very low track to kind of get out of the way, because we're going to delete it, or I'm going to delete it afterwards. So I want to import a new track, and just to show you, that's a track that I'm going to use to do a little bit of fixing of, let's say, room tone or fixing of a hiss. So let's go back to importing a new track, or loading a track, or I'm sorry, loading a clip. And that is a clip right here called Little Lamb Noisy. Okay, right now you can see this clip, compared to everything else, it's quite narrow and it's quite small. Because basically once we've added this Amelie interview clip, the software automatically shows us our entire timeline, the length of the longest clip. So if I were to, let's say, load in another audio clip somewhere that was 20 minutes long, it would even compress everything tighter. As you can see, our timeline down here is from 0 to almost 8 minutes long. That's basically this right here. From time to time, you definitely do want to zoom in or zoom out on your timeline so that you can work more closely on different type of audio files. So for example, this is way too compressed for me. There's nothing that I can really see right here on this waveform. I want to zoom in a little bit closer. And I can use some key commands. So on the Apple keyboard, it would be Command plus, which makes me, or allows me to zoom in on my timeline, or Command minus allows me to zoom out. I think on a PC keyboard or Windows OS, it's I think it's Control plus or minus. Okay, so we can kind of move in and out. And then down here, you'll see now we can move forward and backwards in time if we click and drag along our timeline down here. All right, but let's go back to the beginning. I want to basically just look at this file, this Little Lamb Noisy. I'm going to mute everything else because I really don't care about the rest of all of these clips. Okay, so let me just solo this. Okay, now I'm just going to listen to this file. So let's have a listen to this file, and you can see that there is definitely something that is not good in the recording. So there's a lot of hiss or a lot of room tone, especially in these parts. Let me zoom in a little bit more. In these parts right here, where there's supposed to be silence, but there's no silence. So listen.
Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go.
Okay, so right here, that white part that I just highlighted, and the clicking and dragging, there is some room tone or some hissing that we would like to remove for this entire clip. Because you can definitely hear it. It's also in her voice.
Mary had a little lamb.
You can hear that humming or that hissing in her voice. We'd like to kind of clear that out a little bit. So what you can do is, if you notice also that your audio is too low, so let me just watch this bounce. So let's play this and let's watch our audio levels down here. Again, we'd like to, in the peaks, have it bounce between -12 to -6.
Little lamb, its fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that...
Yeah, it's okay. It may be a little bit too quiet, so maybe we could bump up this volume just a little bit. That basically is right here. We can increase our track volume if we wanted to. I can click And I can drag this, and as I'm dragging it, you can see that there's a number that's going, that's saying how much louder I'm doing it. So if I do it, let me say like a +4, you'll see that this volume will be a little bit louder now in our waveform, or in our levels.
Its whole lamb, its fleece was white as snow,
Yeah.
and everywhere.
That looks better. But of course now we've also increased the volume of this hissing. And what we'd like to do is to get rid of that hissing sound, especially in these silent parts of here, here, maybe here a little bit. It's supposed to be silent, and of course at the end as well. We want to remove that. So here are the steps that you can take. First of all, highlight this. So you click and drag the silent part, or where you can hear just the hissing or the room tone. We want to try to get rid of that part. And then we need to go to the part that's called Tools, right here. That's our tab for Tools. And over here we have something that's called Cleanup Clip. Click. It says grab noise sample from selected area. So what I want it to do is this part right here that I'm highlighting, I want to grab as my sample, because that's what I want to remove. That's the noise that I want to remove from this audio clip. Grab noise from sample selected area. Okay. Now it has grabbed that noise clip. Now I want to select this entire clip, right? I'm going to do something to this entire clip right here. Go back up to Cleanup Clip. Choose the very bottom. Spectral subtraction based on noise sample. Click on that. It's going to do something. It's going to remove that audio. And as you can see, something now changed a little bit in our waveform, right? That noise that was here is now gone. So now let's play this clip again from the beginning.
Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go.
Okay, so it removed the noise, but as you'll probably notice is when it removed the noise, it also affected her voice some. Now, that is just a side effect of us removing this noise. It's going to do something to this entire audio clip, all right? So again, here's how it was before. I'll just do Command Z or Control Z to undo that, and it's going to bring that noise back again.
Mary had a little lamb.
Let's redo what we just did, removing that.
Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was white as snow.
Okay, so it's not perfect, but it's definitely sounding much better than what it was at the beginning. So we have cleaned up this clip a little bit. Again, this may not be necessary if you have already recorded your interview or narration much more clean, that doesn't have any room tone or hissing or anything like that. So then you wouldn't have to do this step. You only have to do a step like this if you notice that your audio clip has some kind of hissing or room tone or buzzing or something like that, right? So again, you don't have to do this all the time. It's just in the case when you feel that it's necessary when your clip doesn't sound very well. And again, mostly you would do that for interviews or for narration. You probably don't need to do that for your ambient or natural sound clips. Okay, so let's take the solo off. I don't actually need this file for my main editing up here, so I can just kind of click it and I'll just delete it for now. All right, we don't need that. I'm also going to kind of get rid of this outro file for right now. It's just kind of in the way. Okay, let's zoom out a little bit so we can see a little bit more of our entire project here. So again, we've got our intro, we've got our interview files, and we've got a music file. And of course, further back, we do have some of our ambient and natural sound clips. All right, there's a few more things, more tools that I want to show up here before I start getting into some serious editing. So if we get up into the editing tab up here, here's where we now can work on individual audio clips. And we will need to use some of these tools up here, in particular the split kill clip, maybe the join clip, probably even some other tools when it comes to working with these individual files. So, for example, I know my intro is a piece of audio clip that I've created that I'm not going to do any more editing on. So I'll just leave that one alone. But for sure on my interview, I don't need the entire interview. I'm only going to need pieces of the interview. And for that, I would go to, let's say, I would look here at my script. Right, my Amelie interview clip. Let me move that very, very beginning. I'm going to just need a few pieces. For example, here at the 2-minute 19-second mark, at the 47-second mark, at the 1:53 mark, etc., etc. Here's where these times are very important to me. Okay, so I know I need a piece of audio from 2:19 to whatever. So let me zoom out a little bit. So I've put my Amelie interview clip at the very beginning, right? Because I want to be able to see this timeline down here. So let me just move ahead to roughly 2:19. Okay, and at 2:19 she says, it's a horrible, horrible sound. It's like the sound just kind of shoots out, and it's like a screaming noise, blah, 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 right? Until the point she says, I wake up so that I can turn it off. Okay, let's just see if that's exactly what we need right here. So I've got it around 2:19. I'm gonna hit the play button. Actually, let's solo this so we don't hear everything else.
It's a horrible, horrible sound. It's like a...
Exactly, okay. So I want to start here. Now, I want to cut this clip because I'm just going to use a piece of it. So I'm going to then split the clip. All right, first of all, I want to make sure that I'm highlighted in this one. I'm going to split the clip. All right, so we've cut this clip in 2 pieces. And then we go until she says, I wake up so that I can turn it off. All right, let's listen to the end.
It's a horrible, horrible sound. It's like a... Because it starts off, it just kind of like, the sound of that feeling, main light in my room. And it just kind of, and then it goes down and it gets lower, but then it gets high again. So you kind of, it's like a panic sound, I like to call it. It creates like a panic, so I have to wake up. And I don't wake up because I want to wake up, I wake up so that I can turn it off.
Stop. Let's go ahead and clip that again. Okay. We want to clip it here. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's take it back to here. We want to clip it there. Okay, so now we've actually got one audio clip. Let's look at another one. So that's the 2:19 one. So there's also one at around 47 seconds, where she says, my name is, and I go to a school in Husqvarna. Okay, let's take this back to 47 seconds. Roughly around here somewhere. Of who you are.
Okay. My name.
Back it up just a little bit. Let's go to roughly right here. I think that's where she says her name. Let's make sure that we've got this clip selected. Let's split it.
My name is Amelie Cox. I'm 15, I live in Sweden, and I go to the International English School in Husqvarna.
Okay, so that's roughly right there is where she ends what she's saying. And let's split that again. All right, so now we've got another clip. So let's go down to the 1:53 mark where she says something. 1:53 would be, oops. 1:53 would be right around here somewhere. I think that's probably about the right spot. Let's just go ahead and split it. Let's listen to what you have to say until she says, it's gone off too late or too early.
The first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is to check the time, because I don't really trust myself enough to know that my alarm went off at the right time, even though I set it at a specific time. I always feel like it's gone off too late or too early.
Okay, so right there, we want to split that clip again. So basically you want to go through and you want to keep doing that. I'm not going to go through all of them now. And all the pieces that you don't need, for example, this piece I won't need. I can just highlight it and delete it. Let's just go ahead and delete that. This piece I won't need, so I can delete that. I think I will need this piece and this piece. You know, now I can move these around to where I need them. I know that I need this one at the very beginning, kind of. Let me just move over here. Let's just go ahead and get this one out of the way. Let me move some of these over. Okay, so now you can move these various clips around after you've cut them up. You can also, if you wanted to, if let's say you put these two clips next to each other, something like that, and you wanted to keep them together, you could highlight both of them, and you can actually join them together if you wanted to. Okay?
Know that.
Oops. You could join them together if you wanted to. You could select both of them and join them. Yeah, so there's different things that you can do to make these two. Oh, there we go. We can join them if we wanted to, and then they're always kind of stuck together. But I'm going to undo that right now. Okay. Next thing that we need to now look at. Let's go back to the beginning of the clip. I have my fade into my intro, and then I'm going to hear her say something. It's a horrible, horrible sound, and then I want to bring in the alarm clock. Okay. So let's go to the very, very beginning. We hear our intro. Okay, let's listen to the intro. Waking up isn't easy, but come on, you sleepyheads. Go ahead, grab a fresh cup of coffee, and join me, your host Dean Cox, for another weekly episode of the Can't Get Out of Bed podcast. And hear how people around the world open their eyes, have a good yawn, stretch their legs, and prepare for a new day. That will fade out, and then we're going to start with our interview.
It's a horrible, horrible sound. It's like because it starts off, it just kind of like...
I don't want to hear my music, so let me go and mute my music. I'm going to mute my natural sound as well. Let's go back to where we were.
It's a horrible, horrible sound. It's like because it starts off, it just kind of like, the sound just kind of shoots out, and it's like a screaming noise, and it just hurts my ears. And then it goes down and it gets lower, but then it gets high again. So you kind of, it's like a panic sound, I like to call it. It creates like a panic, so I have to wake up. And I don't wake up because I want to wake up. I wake up so that I can turn it off.
Okay, so we know that's what she's saying. Now let's go back to our script. So here it says it's a horrible, horrible sound. It's like a sound like it shoots out, and it's like a screaming noise. And that's when I want to bring in this alarm sound. It's a screaming noise, and I want that alarm sound to come in. So now let's turn on our nat sound. Let me find that clip of the, where is it? I want to find the clip of the alarm. Here's the alarm sound. Okay, I want to take this one. I want to move it to the front, because that's what I want to put into this part where she's talking about the screaming sounds. Okay, so she says, let's listen to it again.
It's a horrible, horrible sound. It's like because it starts off, it just kind of like, the sound just kind of shoots out.
The sound just kind of shoots out, and it's like a screaming noise, right? Where does she say that again?
It's like because it starts off, it just kind of like, the sound just kind of shoots out, and it's like a screaming noise.
All right, I want to hear that screaming noise that she's talking about, right?
Screaming noise, and it just hurts my ears.
In fact, I want to hear that sound just a little bit longer.
Screaming noise, and it...
Okay, before she says, and it hurts my ears. So let's take it right, let's zoom in a little bit here. I want to split this clip, because I want to give ourselves a little bit of space now, where she says, again,
screaming noise.
Right? We really want to hear that screaming noise.
And it just hurts my ears. And then it goes down and it gets lower, but then it gets high again. So you kind of, it's like a panic sound, I like to call it. It creates like a panic, so I have to wake up.
Okay, so that's kind of good. So we hear her say, gets high again, it gets low, and then she says, so it's a panic sound, and that's when we're going to bring the music in. So where does she say it's a panic sound?
Panic sound?
It's a panic sound. So right when she starts talking about it's a panic sound, let's start fading in some of our music. Okay, so let's mute this.
And it's like a screaming noise. And it just hurts my ears. And then it goes down and it gets lower, but then it gets high again. So you kind of, it's like a panic sound, I like to call it. It creates like a panic, so I have to wake up. And I don't wake up because I want to wake up. I wake up so that I can turn it off.
Okay, let's go back to our script. And then she says turn off, and then we're gonna have the music play for 7 more seconds. And then we'll bring in the part where she says her name, okay? So we have here the music. That's roughly at the 108 mark. So now we wanna go from 108 to roughly 115. So roughly right around here. That's where we want this clip to come in. And then we go back to my name is, and then if we have the music, after that the music plays for 4 more seconds. So let's kind of bring it down here. My name is.
And I go to the International English School in Huskvarna.
Okay, so now we have her saying that she goes to the International English School, and it ends, go to the International English School, and it ends right around here somewhere. Okay, that is at the 126 mark, and then we want the music to play for 4 more seconds until we get to this next part where she's talking. So 4 more seconds, that means from 126 to 130. So we want this clip to roughly come into the 130. Okay, so this is basically how we are continuing using our script, right? Using our script, how we're just going to continue to build our story. So I'm looking at my fade ins of my intro and outro. I'm looking where I want my natural sound and my ambient sound to come in. I'm looking at where I want the interviews, or maybe if you have more narration, which I'm probably sure that you're going to have, where I'm going to have music kind of fading in and out. So bit by bit, we're going to kind of continue to build this. I'm not going to do that all now because it'll take me a little bit longer, but I do want to show you just a few more skills, a few more things that we need to do as we are working on this. So as you can obviously notice right here, when we have the music come in, it drowns out her voice. Her voice is here and the music is here.
It's like a panic sound, I like to call it. It creates like
But that music is just way too loud. So we need to get this music down. We still want to hear it. We want to fade it in. We want it to be down. And then when it gets here, we want to bring the music up and then bring it down again. So we can do that by highlighting some things on this narrow line in the middle of this waveform. You can see there's a really kind of narrow reddish line in here. And we can click on that line, and when we click on that line, we get these green dots, as you can see. So I'm going to put 2 here. I'm going to put 2 here. I'm actually going to put 2 here. And with these dots, as you click on it, you can now lower or raise your volume. Okay? So we know, again, we want that when this sound first comes in, it needs to be down. We can bring this one down as well. Not completely. We want to have some sound in there. We can, of course, change these in case it's too low. And let's bring it down over here as well. Bring this one down. So let's listen to it now. So we've got her still speaking, and we're going to have this ambient sound of the alarm clock fade out or finish, and then we're going to have the music come in, but while she's still talking.
It's like a panic sound, I like to call it. It creates like a panic, so I have to wake up. And I don't wake up because I want to wake up. I wake up so that I can turn it off.
Okay, music comes up. Now when her next part of her interview comes in, the music's going to go back down.
My name is Amelie Cox. I'm 15, I live in Sweden, and I go to the International English School in Huskvarna.
Music back up. If we want to, we can now click some more green dots here, bring it back down, and green dots at the end, bring it back up. All right?
The first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is to check the...
Okay, it's kind of coming pretty good. Now, a few more things that I'd like to do before we are kind of done with these individual clips is at the beginning of some of these clips and at the ends of some of these clips, we want to do a fade in and fade out. We've already done a fade, so we don't need to worry about, of course, our intro file, because I've already created this file with a fade in at the beginning and a slow, long fade out, as you can see at the end. But on some of these clips here, I do want to do a fade in and fade out. So let's just kind of zoom in here. So right here, although there's not much sound, I do want to fade this sound in. So I'm going to highlight, click and drag. I basically want to click and drag this part right here. And that's the part I want to fade in. Yeah, you know what? I could actually, if I wanted to, I could just click on this and get a green dot, and I could do it that way, right? I could just then click this green dot, click this green dot and bring it down. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do something that's a little bit easier. I'm basically just going to highlight this part right here. And then I'll go to the effects, the mixing part. And there's a fade in and fade out. So I can just click on this button and you can see it automatically did a fade in for me. Let's just listen to that real quick.
It's a horrible, horrible sound. It's like because it starts off.
Okay, and we can also, if we wanted to, then we could do a fade in here. And if I wanted to, I could do a small fade out here. Let's scroll over a little bit more. Oops, that's a bit too far. Then we could do a fade out here if we wanted to. And for sure on this music, I want to do a fade in. Okay, so then we can, of course, wanted to, as I said, I like kind of doing fade ins and fade outs because it makes the audio sound really much cleaner if we can kind of do these fade ins and fade outs everywhere. All right, so let's kind of listen to this part now. Yep. What happened to our, do we have a fade in? We should have a fade in here, right? Yeah, there we go. Let's go to this part.
Like a screaming noise. And it just hurts my ears. And then it goes down and it gets lower, but then it gets high again. So you kind of, it's like a panic sound, I like to call it.
Oops, that fade in is too, we want to bring this back down again. This green dot, let's bring this down. Right there, there we go.
But then it gets high again. So you kind of, it's like a panic sound, I like to call it. It creates like a panic, so I have to wake up. And I don't wake up because I want to wake up, I wake up so that I can turn it off. My name is Amelie Knutsson Cox. I'm 15, I live in Sweden, and I go to the International English School in Huskvarna.
Okay, I'm going to stop there. Like I said, I'm not going to put all of this together right now. But what I will do is I'm going to take a little break, and when we come back after the break, I'll have this all completed in the MixPad software. I'll let you see what the entire timeline looks like, what all of the various tracks look like. We can have a listen to it, and then I'll show you how to export it as well. So let's take a little break, and then we'll come right back. All right, so I am back now after having completed the edit in MixPad. And as you can see here, this is basically what the full timeline looks like with the 4 tracks. The top track, of course, being my intro and outro, so you can just see one clip at the beginning and one clip at the end. Second track is the interview track. And you can see there's various cuts of clips there throughout with fade-ins and fade-outs. Below that, track 3 is the music track. So you can see I had a little piece of music kind of near the beginning, and of course, maybe about 2/3 of the way through, almost all the way to the end, I have music, and you can see these various white dots and the red lines of the audio fading in, fading up, fading down, fading out, etc., etc. And the 4th track was my Nat sound track. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces of Nat sound. And right here, there's actually 2 pieces of Nat sound. We can zoom in on that. let me zoom in on this piece right here. So we have two pieces of Nat sound, one of picking clothes and one of putting on pants that I actually kind of squeezed together. So I first had the picking clothes clip here, and then I took the putting on pants and I squished those together so they overlapped. And what that did is that it actually created what's called a cross fade. So this audio is playing, and as this one is continuing, it fades out, and while this one fades out, the other one, the putting on pants, kind of fades in. So you have a nice kind of mix of sound happening at the same time. Okay, let's listen to it from beginning to end so you can kind of keep track of and watch how the various clips come in and out across these 4 tracks. And of course, then you can also monitor kind of how the sounds fade in and fade out. So what I'll do is, you can see, of course, this is the entire track, or this is the entire sequence here, and that ends at around, I guess, around the 4:30 mark, something, 4:32. So it's about 4 minutes 32 seconds long, as you can see. Let's go right to the beginning. I'll zoom in just to kind of give you, so you can kind of watch it a bit more closely. Okay, so let's have a listen how this goes from beginning to end then. Waking up isn't easy, but come on, you sleepyheads. Go ahead, grab a fresh cup of coffee, and join me, your host Dean Cox, for another weekly episode of the Can't Get Out of Bed podcast. And hear how people around the world open their eyes, have a good yawn, stretch their legs, and prepare for a new day.
It's a horrible, horrible sound. It's like because it starts off, it just kind of like, the sound just kind of shoots out, and it's like a screaming noise. And it just hurts my ears. And then it goes down and it gets lower, but then it gets high again. So it's like a panic sound, I like to call it. It creates like a panic, so I have to wake up. And I don't wake up because I want to wake up, I wake up so that I can turn it off. My name is Amelie Knutsson Cox. I am 15, I live in Sweden, and I go to the International English School in Huskvarna. The first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is to check the time, because I don't really trust myself enough to know that my alarm went off at the right time, even though I set it at a specific time. I always feel like it's gone off too late or too early. So I get up and then I choose my clothes or what I'm going to wear. And then I put them on. I always start with my socks and I end it with my pants. I don't know why, I just do it. And then I choose my jewelry, and then I brush my hair like 3 or 4 times for some reason. And then I go into the bathroom and I put my hair up and I wash my face. Or first I wash my hands with soap. I don't really know why I do it, but my hands always feel dirty in the morning. So I wash them when the water's like really cold. So then after I wash my hands, I let it run for a little bit so that it heats up before I wash my face. And then when I wash my face, I always try to like scrub it a lot around my nose because it's really oily. And then after that, I put my moisturizer on my face on, and then I go and I eat breakfast. I've noticed a pattern of me eating like citrus fruits in the morning, which isn't really that good because I brush my teeth right after. But like oranges or mandarins or apples or bananas. And I don't know, I just like eating fruits in the morning because it's like, it's fresh and it kind of wakes me up more. I usually try to, sometimes I forget, but I usually like clean my room at least a little bit, and then I pull my blinders up. The last thing I do during my morning routine is to like brush through my eyebrows. I don't know, I don't wear that much makeup, but just to like brush through my eyebrows makes me feel like my age, because I feel like I look like a baby otherwise. And I get my bag and I get my jacket that I always, for some reason, hang on the other side of the house because we have 2 doors. And then I grab my jacket, put it on first, and then put my shoes on.
That's it for this week's episode of Can't Get Out of Bed. Join me again next week for another wake-up interview, and enjoy your day. All right, so that's the end of the story, or the podcast, so to say. The last thing to do is, of course, we need to export this as an MP3 so we can upload it to SoundCloud, and then you can attach that to your personal portfolio website. So to export this, we need to go to File, Export Project as audio file, MP3, WAV, etc., etc. You'll get this dialog box. Let's find the location, so let's browse. I'm going to put it onto my desktop, MixPad edit, Gen Z podcast. Well, actually, it's not a Gen Z podcast, I'll call it Morning Podcast. Amelie, oops, I gotta spell it correctly. I can just leave it in here. I want it as an MP3. Save it. We can leave all these other settings as they are. I think we need to do need to change this to MP3 as that. Match source stereo. Hit export. We'll let it do its magic. Hopefully it shouldn't take too long because it is an audio file. It's not too long of an audio file. It's doing this mix down. And then once we are finished with the mix down, let's have a quick listen again to make sure that everything exported correctly. That's important. You never know. Sometimes there could be an error. There could be something that didn't render or didn't export correctly. Project was successfully exported. Okay, let's just hit cancel. Let's see if we can find that file. Morning Podcast, Amelie. Double click it. There it is. Have a quick listen. Wake it up. Beginning sounds good. Let's go to the end. All right, fades out in the end. Yeah. So that's the file then that you would actually put onto SoundCloud. And that's it for MixPad.